Welcome to The Needle, your Division I college basketball podcast. I'm Jack Williams, owner and operator of D1CoachCorner.com, your source for college basketball news, rankings, and predictions. On this podcast, we will present to you weekly conversations on D1 college basketball coaches and their teams. Don't forget to go right now on your computer, phone, or tablet and follow us on Twitter. This episode of The Needle is brought to you by D1CoachCorner.com, your source for Division I college basketball coaches. Thank you once again for tuning into our 14th episode of The Needle. Again, my name is Jack Williams, owner and operator of D1CoachCorner.com, your source for college basketball news, rankings, and predictions. D1 Coach Corner is the number one source for college basketball preseason predictions and college basketball coach evaluations. The Needle College Basketball Podcast will bring to you 52 weeks of college basketball talk on topics dealing with Division I college basketball coaches and their teams. March Madness is here. A busy time for us sports writers and broadcasters. I'm looking forward to covering the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament this year in St. Louis. I am very excited about that. Can't wait to get there. We're going to be doing a preview of the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament and discuss the chances of winning the tournament for each team. We will also bring to you our new Coach Impact segment, which will highlight coaches who have recently taken over a team and has positively impacted that team as a result of him being there. And then we will get into our awards and recognition segment of the show, which highlights Division I players and head coaches who have been recognized or rewarded for their accomplishments during this particular week of college basketball. Like I said before, the Missouri Valley Conference is coming in March. In fact, the second week of March starting on Wednesday, March 6th, and will end on Sunday, March 10th. The tournament has been held in St. Louis, Missouri, as far as I remember. Looking forward to being there next week. I would like to thank the Associate Commissioner, Mike Kern, for the opportunity. Going to the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament is something special to me because it's where my love for Division I college basketball was fueled. I attended Southern Illinois University from 1991 to 1995, which was one of the greatest times of my life, I must add. It is where I attended my first college basketball game at the SIU Arena in Carbondale. It is also where I attended my first conference championship game in St. Louis. Now, it kind of feels strange that I would be returning to the same place as a sports broadcaster. I arrived at SIU in 1991 when Rich Herring was the men's basketball coach at the time. He was a very good coach. I remember that we were always in first place or second place in the Missouri Valley Conference back then. And when I attended SIU, Tulsa was still in the Missouri Valley Conference, who's in the American now, along with another former Missouri Valley team, Wichita State. The one season that I remember so well at SIU was the 1992-1993 season. That is when SIU had won the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament Championship against Illinois State. That year, we didn't win a Missouri Valley regular season title, but we were in second place. Illinois State finished in first place. Our first game in the NCAA tournament came against Duke. Duke had seniors Bobby Hurley and Thomas Hill, juniors Grant Hill and Antonio Lang, and sophomore Cherokee Parks, and freshman Chris Collins, who is now the head coach at Northwestern. Bobby Hurley is now the head coach at Connecticut. Duke beat us bad in the first round, but we had a hell of a team that season. The ones that I can remember most were Ashraf Amaya, Chris Lowry, Tyrone Bell, and Chris Carr. I particularly remember Chris Carr and Chris Lowry the most. For one, I used to see them around campus a lot. Chris Carr ended up spending at least 3 years in the NBA, spending the most time in Minnesota. And Chris Lowry is a very well-known coach on the Division I level. As a matter of fact, he ended up as head coach at SIU later in his career and is now the assistant coach with Bruce Weber over at Kansas State. Coach Lowry was instrumental in helping SIU get to the Sweet 16 under Bruce Weber in 2002, I believe. And then he led them to the Sweet 16 himself as a coach in 2007. So he is very successful on the Division I level. The Missouri Valley Conference is one of the most competitive mid-major conferences in the country. You're going to always find a team in that conference that's competing on the national level. I mean, we've just recently had a team to go to the Final Four last season. If you pay a little bit more attention to the conference, you'll find that there is always some team from this conference either in the Sweet 16 and above. Even though most of the time this conference is a one-bid conference, however, that one bid is always dangerous. As I've mentioned before, SIU went to the Sweet 16 in 2002 and 2007. Bradley went to the Sweet 16 in 2006 under Jim Less. Northern Iowa went to the Sweet 16 in 2010 under the current coach Ben Jacobson. Wichita State went to the Final Four under Coach Greg Marshall in 2013 and to the Sweet 16 in 2015. Wichita State also went to the Sweet 16 in 2006 under Coach Mark Turgeon, who is now at Maryland doing wonderful things. I mean, the Missouri Valley Conference has a rich history of getting teams deep into the NCAA tournament on a consistent basis. This is a very competitive conference. The Missouri Valley Conference currently has 7 teams either at 500 or above 500. Valparaiso, Indiana State, and Evansville are the only 3 teams under 500 in the conference. So competition should be stiff in tournament competition this year. But I think that the Missouri Valley Conference Championship is going to be decided by one of the top 3 teams in the conference standing, which is Drake, Loyola Chicago, or Missouri State. However, I won't count out Southern Illinois or Bradley, but I honestly believe that Drake is going to be the team to win the conference title, and I will tell you why. Drake is the most balanced team in the Missouri Valley Conference. They move the ball well as a team, for one. Even without Nick Norton in the lineup, who is out for the season due to a torn ACL, Drake is still the top team in the Missouri Valley Conference in assists per game. Drake is also ranked 38th in the nation in assists per game. They are the best scoring team and the best rebounding team in the conference. However, with all that said, they lost both games to Loyola Chicago this season. Loyola Chicago beat Drake by almost 20 points at home. But the crazy part about all this, Drake beat Missouri State at home earlier in the season. Missouri State beat Loyola Chicago both games this season. Talk about some confusion. Loyola may have the 6th best defense in the nation, but they are also one of the worst scoring teams in the nation. Of course, it's not going to be a too-big conference, so whoever wins the tournament title will be the only team going to the NCAA tournament this season. I really think that the tournament championship is going to be between Loyola Chicago and Drake. However, the sleepers in the conference are Southern Illinois and Bradley. Like I said, this team is 54th in the nation and 2nd in the Missouri Valley Conference in scoring defense. Bradley has won 5 out of the last 6 games, with their only loss coming against Drake out of all people. One of the 5 wins was against Loyola Chicago. Now, if Drake can find a way to play better defense, they'll definitely win the conference tournament title. Can any one of these teams make it to the Final Four this season? I don't think so. Neither of these teams have wins over top-tier teams this season. Loyola is 0-2 against AP Top 25 teams. They lost to Maryland and Nevada in pre-conference competition. They also lost to Furman, Boston College, and Ball State. So don't expect any Final Four trip for this team in 2019. Drake didn't play any top 25 teams this season. They lost to the only 2 teams they played from major conferences this season, which were Iowa State and Colorado. Southern Illinois is 0-3 against AP-ranked teams. So no, I don't think any of these teams are going to make it to the Final Four this year. So now that we're approaching the end of the season, it is time for our Missouri Valley Conference Awards predictions. Who's going to be Coach of the Year for 2019? I project that the Missouri Valley Conference Coach of the Year is going to go to Coach Darian DeVries of Drake. Like I mentioned in an earlier episode, Coach DeVries didn't inherit an already put together team. He put together his own team. He has also been without transfer guard Nick Norton, but still has his team moving the ball very well. Under Coach Darian DeVries, Drake has the best offense in the Missouri Valley Conference. Now, as the Player of the Year is concerned, there are some very good choices for Player of the Year in the Missouri Valley Conference. Our candidates are Nick McGlynn of Drake, guard Marcus Towns of Loyola Chicago, Tulio da Silva, Missouri State, A.J. Green, guard from Northern Iowa, Darian Brown, guard from Bradley, Malik Yarberry, guard from Illinois State, Phil Fain, forward from Illinois State, Armin Fletcher, forward from SIU, Tyreek Key, guard from Indiana State, Derek Smith, center from Valparaiso, and Ryan Fazekas, the guard from Valparaiso. But I would go with senior Nick McGlynn of Drake. But it's a close one with him and Marcus Towns of Loyola Chicago and Phil Fain of Illinois State. All of these guys are seniors and are great overall players. They are the best all-around players in the Missouri Valley Conference. It's going to be close, but Drake is winning without one of their key players, Nick Norton. However, Nick McGlynn has stepped up tremendously and is still winning. As the Freshman of the Year award is concerned, my choices are DJ Wilkins, guard from Drake, A.J. Green, guard from Northern Iowa, or Javon Freeman, guard from Valparaiso. But I gotta go with my man Javon Freeman from Valparaiso because he is a good all-around player. He can score and he's a great defender. Freeman played in all 30 games thus far and averaged over 10 points per game. He also averages 2 assists per game and has a total of 56 steals. This Valparaiso team is going to be something special next season. If all of these guys return, which I think they will, they're going to do some great things. And so much for that. Let's look into some games played in Week 17 of college basketball to see which teams have moved the needle either up or down. On Sunday, February 24, 2019, Michigan State and Michigan battled for first place in the Big Ten. Michigan State defeated Michigan on the road at the Chrysler Center in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Xavier hands Villanova their third loss in a row and slows down their process to first place in the Big East. UCF demolishes SMU to keep their NCAA tournament hopes alive. Illinois State beats Drake at home to keep Drake in a close race with Loyola Chicago for first place. Southern Illinois helps out Drake by defeating Loyola Chicago on the same day. Arizona State keep their NCAA tournament hopes alive with a win over California. On Monday, February 25, 2019, Kansas turned the race for first place in the Big 12 to a 4-way race by defeating number 1 Kansas State at home. Kansas has only 3 games remaining to make a push for the crown. On Tuesday, February 26, 2019, Virginia Tech helps keep the race for first place tight in the ACC by defeating Duke at home. Duke is in the race for first place with Virginia and North Carolina for the ACC regular season title. Kentucky, LSU, and North Carolina all win their home games in a fight for first place in their conferences. Kentucky defeated Arkansas, North Carolina defeated Syracuse, while LSU defeats Texas A&M. Ohio State fights to keep their NCAA tournament hopes alive by defeating ranked Iowa at home on Tuesday. Alabama gets a road win over South Carolina in hopes of keeping their NCAA tournament hopes alive. Tempo's hope at getting an at-large bid gets dimmer with their loss to Memphis on Monday. On Wednesday, February 27, 2019, in a battle for first place in the Big East, Villanova defeated Marquette at home to keep the race tight in the Big East. UCF keeps its NCAA tournament hopes alive with a good road win over an improving South Carolina team. Illinois State helps out Loyola Chicago and Drake in their tight race for first place by defeating Missouri State, who is in a 3-way race with Illinois Chicago and Drake. Loyola Chicago and Drake both keep the race close by winning their games on Wednesday. Loyola Chicago defeated Northern Iowa on the road, while Drake defeated Indiana State at home. On Saturday, March 2nd, 2019, senior day for most programs across America, there were a plethora of important needle-moving games played in Division I college basketball. Tennessee moves 1 game ahead of Kentucky by defending their home court. Indiana puts their name back on the table for a spot in the NCAA tournament by defending their home court against Michigan State. The win also helped push Purdue to the number 1 spot. UCF continues to keep their NCAA hopes alive by defeating Houston on the road. However, Houston still holds the number 1 spot in the American after the loss. LSU ties for first place in the SEC with Tennessee with their road win over Alabama. Purdue pushed their way up to first place in the Big Ten with their win over Ohio State. North Carolina ties Virginia for first place in the ACC with their road win over Clemson. Texas Tech ties for first place in the Big 12 with their road win over TCU. With only 2 games remaining in the regular season, Kansas gets a road win over Oklahoma State to put themselves within 1 game of catching Texas Tech and Kansas State in the race for first place. Kansas State wins at home against Baylor to keep the race for first place, a 2-way race between them and Texas Tech. Drake and Loyola Chicago both win their final games of the season to share the Missouri Valley regular season title. Drake defeated Missouri State on the road, while Loyola defeated Bradley at home. That concludes the needle-moving portion of our show. We will now move on to the New Coach Impact segment and the awards and recognition portion of our show. This portion of our show is brought to you by D1CoachCorner.com, your source for college basketball news, rankings, and predictions. Once again, don't forget to go follow us on Twitter after the show at D1CoachCorner. In this New Coach Impact segment, we'll be discussing coaches who have been head coach of a particular Division I basketball team for no more than 5 years and who are on the upward trend towards taking their team to another level. This week's New Coach Impact highlights Coach Will Wade of LSU again. Coach Wade is just in his 2nd season at LSU and has this team competing for first place in the SEC. Coach Wade led BCU to the NCAA tournament twice before taking on a job at LSU. Let's hope that Coach Wade can lead this team deep into the NCAA tournament in 2019. Now on to our awards recognition segment. Our awards and recognition segment highlights Division I players and head coaches who have been recognized and rewarded for their accomplishments during this particular week of the show. This week's award and recognition segment of our show highlights South Dakota State forward Mike Daum, who was named the USWBA Oscar Robertson National Player of the Week for games ending in the week of Sunday, February 24th. Daum averages 25.8 points, 11.8 rebounds, and 1.8 assists per game in 2008 and 2019. Daum is only one of 10 Division I college basketball players who has scored more than 3,000 points in his career. We also highlight Duke guards R.J. Barrett for being named the USBWA Wayman Tinsdale National Freshman of the Week for games ending February 24th. Barrett averages 23.3 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 4.1 assists per game and leads all Duke players in scoring. That concludes our show for this week. Join us next week at the same time and same channel for new episodes. We'll be happy to take your questions and comments on Twitter for our next episode. Our Twitter handle is at D1 Coach Corner. That is at D1 Coach Corner. See you next week.